Okay, so now is probably as good a time as any to go ahead and do sort of a video introduction to this car. 1966 Mustang coupe. I got this car from my father-in-law. He had it pretty much stored, I'll say, in his garage for the better part of almost 3 decades. They got it from a neighbor lady across the street. So it was just taking up residence in a garage in Dallas and sat there for a good 30 years where it was just waiting for me to come rebuild it. So you can already see that I've removed the front half of the engine bay. These aprons over here were both had been subjected to accident damage. So had the radiator support. So I was going to replace those anyway, and I was a little proactive and removed those already. Those will be replaced eventually. They're not structural, so I'm not in a huge hurry to do that. We'll just work from front to back. I've already refinished the cowl. I actually removed this completely. Removed all the rust on the inside and on the top and at the seams. There was quite a bit of scale rust along this area. There's some pinholes in here. You can see where I made a little bit of a patch under there. This might be difficult to see in that shadow covered with the primer. But the cowl on this car was in surprisingly good shape. A lot of times you see these cars, their cowls are completely rusted out. They weren't sealed that well from the factory, and they're usually rusted out, and you have to replace them. But for me, fortunately, this is an original Texas car, and other than a lot of pitting on the original rust, some small areas where it was rusted through, it was really in excellent shape. So I was able to just remove the upper cowl, the lower cowl. I had them on a bench, cleaned them up. I sandblasted the lower cowl. Then I just refinished them with just a good old Rust-Oleum primer and satin black on the inside. So that'll stay that way on the inside. If I need to, maybe later I'll respray that on the inside, especially once this car actually gets painted. It might look weird with a little bit of overspray in there. But this is one of the main hurdles to getting this car to where it's actually really ready for actual body work. And right now I'm kind of using it as storage. But I also replaced a section of the outer rocker on the passenger side. This area right in here had been heavily damaged from what looked like unintentional off-roading, and so I cut out the damaged section, put in a new piece, and fixed that. The inner rocker was also bent out of shape. I was able to salvage that, keep it in the car, bent it, used a hammer and dolly and an air hammer to get it back into shape, and then welded that all together. And then I put in a new floor pan. The original floor pan on this car was completely rusted out in places. The rear passenger footwell here was just a gaping hole, like 12 by 12 hole. So original floor supports, those are all in excellent shape. Not a speck of rust, not inside or anything. Rear frame rails are good. No rust problems there, nothing like that. I did also install some torque boxes. These did not originally come on the 65 and 66 cars. They did on convertibles, but regular coupes and fastbacks didn't receive these reinforcements. So you can see how it under here would normally be the toe board and the firewall, and this piece, there's also an inner piece. You can see the lip of it right there. Now this piece ties together the frame rail, the rocker, and the firewall. So it gives a lot more rigidity than it would have otherwise. Other than those areas, all the rockers are solid. All the rust you see here is on the surface. I'm going to have this media blasted at some point. Currently I'm working on the back end of the car. This car had, in addition to the accident damage up front, it had also been rear-ended at some point in its life. The original trunk support, just a bent piece of stamped piece of metal that went from this side to this side, welded to the back of the rear frame rails here. That was all bent out of shape, and someone had tried to excuse me. Someone had tried to straighten it out. They didn't do a very good job. I mean, it was probably pretty mangled. The original bumper I'll show you over here have the original bumper sitting behind the original trunk lid, and you can just see the bend it has in it. So it was smacked pretty good at some point in its past. So I am fixing that. That silver piece is a new trunk support that's going to be going in. I also have those other silver pieces. These are the outside edges of the tail panel where the tail light's attached to. Just like that. So these will require a little bit of modification to go in. These are designed for fastback, so they have a narrower trunk channel. So I'm going to have to modify that, like probably slice it along here and add some extra metal in there to get these to fit the coupe. But other than that, everything like the angle up here where it goes into the trunk channel, all this stuff is the same, whether it's a coupe, convertible, whatever. Also got new trunk floors gonna be going in. But right now, what I'm gonna have to do is probably a result of it being rear-ended. The frame rails are a little bit about a quarter inch closer together than they should be, so that trunk support won't fit between the two trunk drop-offs there. So I'm gonna have to spread that out about a quarter of an inch. So I got a way that I'm gonna do that. But that's what I'm working on right now. Lots of scale rust everywhere, but it's mostly solid. The only other rusted areas over the wheel well. I just kind of spray painted it just to keep it from spreading, but that was covered in Bondo originally, so that's gonna get fixed. I'm gonna have to rebuild some of these flanges here that the taillight extension panels go to, because some of these are really thin. They've been rusted. That's why I cut all this out, because the originals they'd been rusted, and someone had used like a old school bodywork technique. They used like a brass brazing to reattach it, and it was ugly. So it was all rusted out. I removed all that. So this is going to get replaced as needed. The trunk floors are going to get replaced. New trunk brace, rear trunk support, and then I have a new tail panel. It's original Ford tooling tail panel that's in the garage in a box. That'll get put in there as well, and then that'll finish out the rear, the tail panel area of this car, and it'll be coming together really nicely. It'll looking like a car again. It's already looking like a car again with the floor pan and the cowl back on. So these Fender Aprons are also going to need to be replaced. I cut out a chunk of them just to give you easy access to this, but these are going to need to be replaced anyway. The top nut for the hood hinges was ripped out on both sides, and also you got like big old dents like this. So I'm not sure what happened to this car. Maybe this is another consequence of the off-roading, but you got this damage right here. I'm going to be putting a modern independent front suspension on this car that'll eliminate the shock towers, because there's also damage on the shock towers. Like, who knows what would cause that? This isn't rust. This is some sort of puncture damage. Original 6-cylinder car. So this will be getting a V8, of course. Good thing is the firewall is solid, and now the cowl is solid. So it's a really solid foundation. It looks like more trouble than it really is. Once this thing gets media blasted and all-in-one color primer, it'll look much better. And right now I just have it sitting on these jack stands just as a means of keeping it 100% level, because you really want it 100% level when you're dealing with structural stuff like that cowl or the floor pan, or especially that outer rocker panel. So that's where she's at. I'll keep you updated as progress comes along. Thanks.